Om Satchidananda Rupaya Vishvotpatyadi Hetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Numaha. Janmadhyasya yatonvayaditarataschaarteshvabhignaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye Muhyanti Yatsurayaha Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Svena Sadani Rasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi Dharma Projita Kaitavotra Paramo Nirmatsaranam Satam Vedyam Vastavamatra Vastu Shivadam Tapatrayon Mulanam Srimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Va Parerishwaraha Sadyo Hridyavarudyate Trakritibihi Shushrushubistatchanat. Hari Om and greetings from Niagara Falls. I welcome all of our young adults and evolving adults who are joining us for our special class. I welcome all of our adults who are communing through Zoom, through YouTube. A joyous bhakti anudina to all. Joyous because that's the best greeting. We should almost say this word before we use any other word. Bhakti means to depend on the higher. The more we depend, the less selfish we are. Anudina, this is not a day. This is not an event. This is every day. This is a form of development. A sadhu is one, when you have a relationship with her, with him, your desires are reduced. When you interact with a sadhu, your desires reduce. I want to read to you a birthday wish that a seeker, one of you, had shared with me recently. P.S. As far as anything I'd want for my birthday, I would appreciate it if you spoke to Bhagavan Krishna about giving direct experience of his nature, complete knowledge of himself, like he did for the gopas and gopis. Did you have the same prayer on your birthday? But that's what our prayer should be on our birthdays, etc. We are in the 6th class of this semester, the 20th class of this year, the 94th class of this course. I hope you're beginning to appreciate that a sadhu is not an individuality with a specific name and form. A sadhu is a community, our community, where we're shifting our desires for myself, to desiring the divine. This is the vision, the fabric of Vedanta in Bhagavata. We are immersed in the rasa pancha adhyayihi, the 5 chapters on enlightenment. Chapter 29, the focus is pranaya. Pranaya in English means supplication. The gopis share with Bhagavan Krishna how much they depend on him using their words. In chapter 30, Araditaha, we come to meet Devi Radha. And here, the gopis share with Bhagavan Krishna how much they depend on him, not with just words, but their actions. In chapter 31, the Gopi Gita, the gopis share with Bhagavan Krishna how much they depend on him, not just with words and actions, but their entire lives depend on him. And so the Gopi Gita is really a chapter on mumukshutvam. We treat this too casually. We focus on the poetry too much. The Vedanta is a focus on the last quality that a seeker needs, the intensity to be with their original parent, to be independently joyous. A gopi is one who P means inputs, introspects with their go, that is their senses, all of their equipment. For those in our retreat, I've been sharing how dhyana or contemplation should be perpetual and personal. That's verses 7 and 8. These gopis are contemplating on their own nature perpetually and personally. One has to feel that they are a full-time seeker to be a gopi. You have to feel that. For all of the parents who are joining us, legally, you may be a parent, but you know when you're being a passive parent and you're being an active parent, correct? Feeling like you're a full-time parent cannot be measured externally. So for all of us who are engaged in their relationships and their professions, you can still be a full-time seeker if you feel it. Those who have no relationships, have no professions, you can still not be a full-time seeker if you don't feel it. Bhagavan Krishna in the Gopi Gita is testing the gopis. He as if disappears from them to test them. Really, that is a blessing for them to intensify their longing for him. I've shared this with all of you. Training happens in a controlled environment. Testing happens in an uncontrolled environment. That testing is a blessing to see how aligned you are with the truth. And these gopis are. We'll read the end of Gopi Gita and then continue. Iti Shrimad Bhagavate Mahapurane Paramahamsyam Samhitayam Dashamaskande Purvardhe Rasa Kridayam Gopi Gitam Nama Ekatrimshodhyayaha. And we continue with these 5 chapters. We continue to chapter 32. This is a deep chapter. We have to experience this depth before we begin our rasa lila. Of course, I'm in the 10th skanda, the 10th section, the 32nd adhyaya, chapter 32, the 19th shloka, verse 19. Bhajatopi na vekechid, bhajantya bhajata kutaha, atma ramo hyapta kama, akritagnya guru druhaha. Here, Bhagavan Krishna is speaking. So much of what we're experiencing is Rishi Shuka speaking. Here, Bhagavan Krishna is speaking to the gopis. They had asked him a question about love, and he responds by creating a framework of love. And this is very deep, so I'm going to share more of this after we get to the buildup, after we go through this buildup. The gopis are on the banks of the Yamuna. They're practically dead, physically, mentally. And then who reappears? Bhagavan Krishna. And when he reappears, they all start to rise. Their eyes dilate, and they rush to be with him. There's so much detail that's given to the extent of Bhagavan Krishna is chewing on a betel nut. Pan. He's having a great time. And those gopis are so close that a little bit comes out. You know, like you see those Thakurs in Bollywood movies, and as they're speaking, that's coming out. And they're catching that and keeping it close to their hearts. And some more details. Please tune into the depth. One of the gopis sucked Bhagavan Krishna into her eyes and went into ecstasy, like a yogi. Another gopi, whose heart was aching, felt Bhagavan Krishna in her, and she became thoughtless. Not careless, but thoughtless, like what the Veda teaches. Another gopi, and this is actually all of the gopis, they took their clothes and threw them in a pile on the banks of the Yamuna to create a throne for Bhagavan Krishna to sit in, because they felt him in their hearts, and they didn't want any clothing to be between him and their heart. Like we learn that your dearest relationship is you, they felt that. They are reveling in Bhagavan Krishna. And they're partially, marginally confused, angry. And this is why they ask him, you say that you love us, but do you love us? Because if you loved us, why did you leave? So now Bhagavan Krishna gives this deep framework. I will try to move slowly. You try to write this down. Bhagavan begins saying, one type of lover is one who loves for getting love in return. Okay? Such a personality is selfish. They love for reciprocity. They're selfish. Number two, one who loves without any transaction of receiving love back. No game of reciprocity. Such a personality is selfless, and Bhagavan even uses the description, is parental. Is parental. Parents, do you have this love? We used to, but then our kids grew up. Then the third category, the one who doesn't love. Doesn't love for return or no return, simply does not love. And he describes such people in 4 categories, okay? So 3 categories of love. Now he's opening up the third category. In the third, why don't they love? One type of person is Atma Rama. Atma Rama means they are living in Advaita, in oneness, so there isn't anyone to love. Clear? You're all thinking, yeah, that's us. I don't love anyone either. The second is known as Apta Kama. Apta Kama means one who, though living in Dvaita, has the vision of Advaita. Though living in duality, has this vision of oneness. So for them, there also isn't anyone to love. The third, Akritagnya. Akritagnya means one who, though in Dvaita, is completely unaware, they don't know. So for them, there's no one to love either. Okay? Akritagnya means they're in Dvaita, but they're content, they're enlightened. So they're reveling in their own selves. There is no one to love. These 3 you can categorize as really just one. They are tuned into oneness. So there is no other to love. And the fourth is known as a Guru Druha. A Guru Druha is one who is vicious. They are papis, and they're ones who are not capable of loving. Okay? Everyone follow that framework. Now, why Bhagavan Krishna is sharing this? He says, I am none of these. Build up, not applicable. And you know why? He says, I am love. In these earlier categories, there's an expression of love. Bhagavan says, I am love. And that was the answer that the gopis needed of why did you leave? And his answer is, I am love. I love you, which is why I created this as if separation to intensify your love for me so that you too become love. And now I'll read the end of this chapter in English because it's so passionate. This is all verse 22 in chapter 32. Even by service for countless divine years, I cannot pay back to you anything equal to your glorious act of self-surrender. Prompted by love untarnished by any blemish of selfishness, and breaking the ever-powerful chain of attachment for home and worldly concerns, as I cannot pay back the debt, may your generous act be its own reward. The subtlety of this is, I'm not giving you love back. I want you to be love. And that's what bhakti is, no? The 5th Purushartha, the 5th purpose in life, the highest reason to live is not enlightenment, but it is devotion. It is depending. It is bhakti anudina. And now, the completion of the chapters on enlightenment, the rasa lila. If you want to dance, you can dance. If you want to sing, you can sing. If you want to cry, you can cry. You just be love. As I narrate to you, the katha, and if I feel like it, I'll share the Vedanta, but I just feel like sharing the katha right now. So I'm going to begin. The 10th skanda, the 33rd adhyaya, the 3rd shloka. 10:33, 3. This is Rishi Shuka explaining to Raja Parikshita. What does he share? Rasotsava sampravritto gopi mandala manditaha yogeshwarena krishnena tasam madhye dvayor pravishtena grahitanam kante swanikatam striyaha. And then the rasa utsava. Utsava means festival, can mean dance. Here in English, it's called carnival. Sampravritto, it began. Gopi mandala manditam, and all of the gopis arranged themselves holding hands. Yogeshwara Krishna. Tasam madhye dvayoho, and in between each gopi was the master of yoga, the Krishna. Pravishtena grihitanam, and as this began, he was holding the gopis, kante swaniketam striyaha, and bringing them close, holding them by their necks in a loving way, not in a mean way. Then what happened? They danced. As Bhagwan was between them holding their necks, some of the poetry is, it looked like an emerald between two gold beads. Bhagwan being the jewel and the gopis being the gold. The gopis were dancing vigorously. They were singing vigorously. And it looked like a dark cloud between lightning. Those gopis were shining, and then Bhagwan Krishna's in the middle. And every gopi was looking at Bhagwan Krishna, trying to make him more joyous. What a concept, that he is joy, but there's so much love and oneness that they want him to be more joyous. Whatever they can do to make that happen. Some special portions of this. Gopyo labdva achyuta kanta. They had all earned Bhagwan Krishna as their husband. If you remember how these chapters began, they had engaged in a vrata. They were engaged in discipline, sacrifice for Bhagwan Krishna to become their husband. And see the phala of this, the reward, the result, that this is possible. We're believers, but we don't have faith. This rasa lila should instill faith in us that these little girls who are engaged in this vrata, this was possible for them. It is most definitely possible for us to have Bhagwan be our spouse, for Bhagwan to be us. There were so many flowers in these gopis' hairs, and they were dancing so hard that the flowers kept on falling, and the bees kept on coming closer and closer to those flowers. And there were so many bees then that that became the music that they were dancing to. And the accompaniment to the music was all of their jewelry, their necklaces, their bangles, their anklets. Everything sounded perfect. I remember Swami Tejomayananda sharing, when the gopis were crying for Bhagavan Krishna, even that was melodious. Not jarring like when we complain and criticize and cry. Even hearing them cry was you wanting to be with them. Bhagavan Krishna was loving every one of these gopis like a child playing with itself, looking in a mirror. Like our younger son CHYK, when he was younger, we put a mirror beside his bed. And as he would go to sleep, he would just play with that entity in the mirror, touching it, smiling at it. Now he's jaded and he's removed that, we've removed that mirror, etc. But that's how Bhagavan was with these gopis. He was just playing with himself. The moon, who was illuminating this rasa lila, was amazed at what it was seeing, so it became still. And so the whole night went on and on and on. Another special message. Shantame nangam panina. And these gopis were sweating so much. It's India, remember. They were sweating so much that Bhagavan Krishna was wiping their sweat with his own hands so it wouldn't get into their eyes and sting their eyes. And he felt how much they loved him, so he guided all of them to go into the river. And they all started playing in the river, just splashing each other. Again, childlike. The English is so strange. They were all shooting water jets at each other. They were being. I don't know how else to describe all of this. Now, Rishi Shuka is explaining this to Raja Parikshita. And Raja Parikshita asks, how is all of this allowed? These gopis who have their own relationships, have their own responsibilities, and they're in the middle of the night, in the middle of the jungle, with one entity. How? And he uses terms like, this is anti-Krishna. This is behavior of the worst kind. And now Rishi Shuka shares here. Bhagavan Krishna is like fire. Fire purifies all that goes into that fire without losing its purity. Rishi Shuka explains to Raja Parikshita that Bhagavan Krishna is supra-moral. I'd shared this term with you some weeks back. Morality doesn't apply to him. And it's almost like he's being sarcastic with Raja Parikshita. He says, if you don't believe me, then instead of imitating Bhagavan Krishna, first imitate Bhagavan Shiva. When he drinks up that kala kuta, that poison, you try that first. And then you can start imitating how Bhagavan Krishna is. He explains that Bhagavan Krishna is being, he's not doing. Only if you're doing can there be sinning, but if you're not doing, there can't be sinning. He is being with himself. He shares the spirit of the gopis, the spirit of the gopis' husbands, the spirit of all beings is Bhagavan Krishna. So how can this be wrong? He is them. Ananya, there is no other. You can only harm another. You can't harm yourself independently. and I'll read to you the completion of the rasa lila in English, because it's so passionate again. Whoever hears or recites again and again the account of Krishna's amorous dalliances with the gopis with deep faith in the divinity of Krishna, the faith that he is Mahavishnu, the supreme being. And for all of the students who have been with me since the first class, we went through how Bhagavan Narayana or Bhagavan Vishnu is the original and all else are expressions of him. So that's why this point is being made, that Bhagavan Krishna is Bhagavan Narayana. Attains to the highest devotion to the Lord, and in the course of the development of devotion, he quickly overcomes lust, the universal heart disease of humankind. And though this is not stated in the samapta, the conclusion of Gopi Gita, what many teachers have shared, what the rasa lila is the kama vijaya lila. It is the expression of being victorious over not just lust, but desire. Desire only comes to those who are incomplete. If one has become victorious over incompleteness, that means they are enlightened. That means they are Bhagwan. And so the rasa lila is very, very, very different than how we interpret this and practice this today as being something that's entertaining or even cultural, when this is the highest teachings, the highest experience. And there's much, 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 much more. And so like the moon kept that night going, I'm going to have to take one more class to complete these 5 chapters. Everyone, sit straight with your head, neck, and back in a line. Rest your feet on the ground. Rest your hands inside of each other. Inhale deeply through your nose. Exhale through your nose. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And as you exhale, close your eyes. Rest your sight. And for the next while, challenge yourself, promise yourself to keep the body completely still. Promise yourself, challenge yourself to listen to my words carefully, to experience my words. Imagine waking up in a jungle. As you sit up, coming off the ground, and then stand up, you look around and you see thick vegetation. You hear owls, birds, crickets. It is nighttime, and so you look around to see where you are, and you come to accept that you are alone, yet you feel safe and sound. As you're intensifying your experience, listening more, seeing more, in the distance, you hear a soothing song. And this fascinates you that in the middle of the night, in the middle of the jungle, where is this sound coming from? And so you slowly start to walk in that direction. As you're walking, you're pushing aside branches. You're feeling the grass beneath your feet. You're enjoying the fragrance of jasmine and wildflowers. As you continue to walk, you keep hearing this soothing sound more clearly, that this is a sound coming from a flute. You reach the edge of a clearing in this jungle. As you look into the clearing, there isn't so much vegetation. There is an opening, and you see many shining, glowing beings that are dressed in a most natural way, smiles on their faces, dancing and singing. And you can't help yourself. You're drawn to their presence, and you walk towards them. Their movement is most mystical. Their singing is most immersive. And the sound of the flute becomes more audible. It's not coming from these beings. It's coming from the center of where these beings are. You keep walking closer. And gently, you move your way through these dancing beings and enter the center of this circle. And there you see the most beautiful, transcendental presence you've ever seen with your eyes, you've ever imagined with your intellect. With a yellow lower cloth, a garland of wildflowers, a tilted peacock feather near his forehead, and the flute, gently being caressed by his lips. You feel like your eyes and your heart are leaving you and going to him. And for a micro moment, he stops playing, stops looking into the distance, and directly looks at you. And with that one glance, he's communicating to you, come. Come closer. Be next to me. And then he continues to look at all, to play, and you go. You leave aside your past. You make yourself completely vulnerable. It doesn't matter what your name is, what you have to do, who you are. And you stand face to face with him. And you're holding yourself back from looking into his eyes. You just keep looking at his smile. And then he holds his flute with just one hand. And with the other hand, he holds your hand and brings you closer. Then he brings you beside him and puts his arm around your neck. You can hear the flute. Immediately, there's no space between you and the flute. And slowly, steadily, you start to feel lighter and lighter and lighter. You feel like you're disappearing. And you've never felt more joyous, more free. And in your complete dependence, surrender, you merge with Bhagavan Krishna. When you're ready, stretch, inhale, open your eyes, and come back to this false, as if reality. In a secular way, this would be called guided imagery. In the science of development, this is called saguna dhyana. Contemplating on the form and name and guna. Guna means qualities, so that you're in tune with the Dhamma, who you really are, what reality is. You renounce the lower, perpetually, personally. We don't have too much time. If anyone does have questions, you can type this out in the chat. In this class through Zoom, we may have 250 seekers. There's another 50, 60, 75 over YouTube. For the sake of professionalism, if you type in your questions, I'll read them and I'll answer them. And it's hard to ask questions in this false reality, no? I'll read some of your comments. I really felt Bhagavan with me. I was taken to another world. Here's a question. When Krishna mentions the types of love, what is the Sanskrit term he uses for love? I will have to reference that for our understanding, bhakti. I have been defining bhakti as depending because we established that in our Ramayana course. Here, bhakti typically is defined as devotion, and in our course, it is surrender. Bhakti is surrender. Can we review them in YouTube? Yes, this class is being broadcasted and will stay on the Chinmay Mission Niagara YouTube channel. More experiences. One felt weightless. This was an amazing experience. Only emoticons of hands folded together. Would request if you can take meditation sessions and as and when you get time. Thanks for the supreme bliss. No problem, just ask more of me. We'll have a daytime class, we'll do meditation at 6 a.m., we'll have yoga nidra at 12 p.m. I felt Krishna. Opening my eyes was very hard. Here's a question. How do we know that we are surrendering? There are many ways. One is you think about yourself less. In surrender, you're thinking about the one you're surrendering to more. That's why this is synonymous with bhakti, love. If you love a being, you think about them more than you. Another way you know you're surrendering is you have less vices. Specifically, if we think of Prince Arjuna, his three vices are moha or confusion, bhaya or fear, and shoka or sadness. And that's because he feels he's the doer. So he's experiencing what comes with doership, which is these vices. And what Bhagavan Krishna teaches him is you are not the doer, in which case internally you renounce these vices. And that's how Bhagavad Gita ends, no? You can forget about all dharma other than me. We all chant that, but who really knows what that means and how to live that? How can one be enlightened in David? I'm not really sure what that word is, so maybe you can tell me what that word means. Others have shared this has been a divine experience. The answer is love. You were in the rasa lila. David is Dvaita. Autocorrect. How can one be enlightened in Dvaita? That's a fine question. One way is to make one's lifestyle puja or seva oriented. If you all watch the first discourse from our Mind the Gap retreat, Sri Ramana describes puja as serving this multiverse with every facet of who you are, particularly your senses, mind, intellect, and ego. And I shared with our young adults, our evolving adults, choose professions and relationships that are overtly service-oriented. So this becomes more of a reality then. Next is, Dvaita is a testing ground. and you need to be tested to reach the truth. If you're not tested, you can never reach the truth. It will always be hypothetical, theoretical. So if you go about your lives feeling I'm being tested on my weaknesses and strengths, eventually you will convert weaknesses into strengths, and that becomes Advaita then. If viciousness is Dvaita, then virtuousness is Advaita. And finally, you keep remembering how lucky you are, how bhagya you are. If you keep remembering bhagya, that really means you're remembering Bhagwan and you're forgetting about yourself. And the visualization for this, I believe it's Sri Tulsidas who shares this. Imagine Bhagwan is a fisher person, and he has this net, which is called Maya. And he throws this net and is catching all of the fishes, catching Jyoti and Dvija and Sunita and Tanu and Shriya and Vivek for sure. But which fish are not caught? The ones that are near the fisher person's feet, correct? You can all see that physically. Those fish aren't caught. It is only the fish that are far away from the fisher person. You keep remembering the fisher person, and you will not be caught. Your reflection adventure of the week, your raw from last week, was to contemplate, dhyana, on one of the verses from Gopi Gita. How many of you tried? I did read those reflections on Medium, and one of the reflections was sharing how they've heard Gopi Gita before, but they've never experienced Gopi Gita until they started to contemplate on this. And I shared with our retreaters the completion of Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, listening, reflecting, contemplating, is the message becomes real and personal. If you just listen but don't reflect, the message is not real. If you listen and reflect but don't contemplate, the message is real, but it's not personal. It is only when you listen, reflect, and contemplate does the message become real and personal. You feel moved by the message. Here is your raw, your reflection adventure of the upcoming week. I want you to formulate 3 changes, 1, 2, or 3, but not more than 3. 3 changes in your life for you to become a full-time seeker. For you to start to depend on Bhagwan more, for you to be a gopi. 1, 2, or 3. If you list 10, you're not going to do any of them. So 1 or 2 or 3 changes for you to be a full-time seeker, for you to depend, for you to be a gopi. We continue to announcements. I'm teaching all of you a physical book. This is volume 3 of Srimad Bhagavata for me. Books are the original social media. Did you know that? And all of you and me, knowing this reality, for the past 2 years, we've been creating, publishing, sharing books for seekers to keep feeling the messages real and personal. These books are, in July of 2019, we released Life Lessons. This is a book, this is a teaching guide for high school students. How do you make Vedanta, self-development, more real and personal. And though I'm sharing this as a teaching guide for high school students, this is really for all of us. We all need to know how to make this more real and personal. This is a free book. You just have to give us your email address. And all of this is being shared in our chat, on the YouTube video. The next book we released in November of 2019, called Traditions, Simple Meals for Mindful Living. And this was a book to really, it's called cancel culture, correct? Cancel culture fast food. To actually invest in buying and preparing and cooking and eating. These, I believe, are 28 or 30 simple recipes, one for each day, for everyone to develop mindfulness. And this you can order. It's a very visual book. The next, in May of 2020, we released the R.A.W, the Reflection Adventure of the Week Workbook. This was my first personal book. The second one will be coming out in July. And this is a way to make each week more disciplined. Every week you're given a challenge, like going to sleep earlier, not using negative words. And for you to track this, it encourages journaling. Hundreds of you have this. This I feel to be a really solid gift for anyone who needs more help in becoming disciplined. And the most recent book, which was released in July of 2020, is Prince Arjuna's Questions. The more you can relate to Prince Arjuna, the more you can be realized like him. We have an entire course on Prince Arjuna's Questions with hundreds of seekers. This is a fine analysis for you to see, for you to reflect upon. Again, all of these details, some are free, some are, you're just paying for the printing. I shouldn't tell you this, but for Traditions, I think we make 21 cents a book. I said cents, not dollars. And this is just to spread the word. The message is real and personal. Okay? Next is a week from yesterday. We have our Healing with Hanuman celebration, the Utsava, to uplift ourselves and also to raise funds for our Chinmaya University. Our organizers in Albany and Cleveland and Niagara have shared with me that we have 265 sponsors who have come forward. Our aspiration was to raise $25,000 in 25 days. I think we raised $25,000 in less than 20 days, which means we have to raise $30,000, obviously. And I hope by the time I'm done speaking, 35 more sponsors will come forward to support the future so that the message is real and personal for longevity. And my final announcement, 2 weeks from tomorrow, that puts us at March 1st. We are going to begin a 4-evening workshop, all virtually, on why do we? And my focus will be on our Samskaras, traditions, how to live life more meaningfully. This is open to all. This will be in English. Do secure those dates and times and spread the word. You have to register for this freely so we can keep on communicating with each other. With that, everyone come forward. I have to see you more clearly. Show me how a gopi looks. How fortunate I am to see so many gopis. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Be safe, be sound, be serene. Be depending on the divine. Be happiness.